Hello and welcome to the Life by Design podcast, brought to you by Strategic. This podcast is all about helping you live your great life. Hello and welcome back to the Life by Design podcast. This week, Melissa Fernalld is joining me again. As a reminder, Melissa is a CFP and a certified divorce financial analyst, senior advisor, and partner here at Strategic.
Yes. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. It's a lot.
Mouthful.
Yeah. And this time we're going to talk about, I hope we can, make it a brighter topic, but it's a little bit of a sadder topic, which is widowhood.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to kind of try to cover, even if it was something that was planned and you had an estate planning in place, or if this is kind of a shock for you as well, maybe some of the things that you need to think about. Yeah. And so I think, Melissa, from your standpoint, I guess we can just talk about the day, the week after, what should I be doing? What's the first thing our listeners should be thinking about and doing?
Yeah. So it really starts with, first I'll just say, taking a breath, acknowledging the loss, going through those emotions, right? Normally there's not too much of a rush to do a lot. So you can kind of take that time that you need to get through that moment. And then, really avoid making any kind of rash financial decisions. That's usually, something we would recommend against. Take some time, settle into this new reality. And then from there, figure out kind of what the next steps look like. But then really it's just getting organized and gathering some key documents. So, a lot of times a death certificate is needed to do some financial transactions. If there's life insurance out there, you want to gather those documents and start, working to notify the right people. If you're working, there might be some benefits, that are due to you. If you are retired and receiving Social Security, there's some work to do there, right? Notifying Social Security, adjusting to what the new income will be. So it's really just getting organized.
Yeah. And, one of the conversations we had with Greg from Strategic as well that kind of struck me and something that's come up in my own personal life is understanding the difference between power of attorney and executor of the will. And I'll let you talk to it, but really what Greg said was that power of attorney stops at the moment of death, and then that's when executor of the will picks up. So I think that's a huge thing to understand.
That's right. Yeah. A power of attorney is effective while you're living. Who can make decisions on your behalf if you cannot? Once you pass away, the will kicks in. And that's where that executor that you named within your will takes over and really starts to play out all those different wishes that you laid out in that will.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's the same person, right?
Could be the same person,
right.
Could be different people.
Yeah. But I think just, I think one of the things for people to think about is, if you're widowed and you had two different, like making sure because the one person, if they were the power of attorney, they're not going to be able to do anything anymore. And so now you've got to transfer to the other person, or maybe you are that person.
Right.
So,
yep. Yeah. Sometimes you might be that person, with spouses, that tends to be the case. But it could be another family member as well. So that's exactly right. Knowing who that person is and then partnering with them to, understand how things will transfer, the timing of them and all those different moving parts.
So, we kind of talked about briefly about like kind of collecting, getting organized and collecting your assets and everything that you have. Like, what would you say are like maybe the top three kind of I'll call them housekeeping tasks that like a newly widowed woman should be like tackling right away?
Yeah. The first part is ensuring you have access to cash.
Yeah.
So understanding what bank accounts you have, how they're titled, and what you have access to, right? Because a lot of times, if someone owns an account and they pass away, that account freezes
Mm.
until you go through that estate process. So understanding what cash you have access to, because unfortunately the bills don't stop. So you have to, keep paying bills, and you're going to have some new bills from, maybe the funeral home or
Mm.
whatever. And so ensuring you have access to cash flow. That's number one. And then two, would be to just start to look at, any life insurance claims, um, getting organized, a list of what accounts are out there, what assets, how are they titled, what do we need to do to get them retitled, what are your income sources, right? So you want to
Yeah.
make sure you understand that and how that might change. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it can be broken down, into small manageable pieces. And the first step really starts with that cash flow, just making sure you have access to cash so you can keep living your day-to-day life,
Right.
right? Keep eating, keep the lights on. So that's really where it starts.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this in other like emotional life points, but like sometimes when this happens, you're sometimes you're losing half of your decision making team, right? So how can someone rebuild their financial confidence during this time period?
Yeah, I think it starts with that organization, and just understanding where everything is.
Mm.
What are those assets? What are your income? What are your expenses? It's a good process, especially if you were not the one who was in charge of paying the bills, or, managing day to day cash flow, or if you were the one, who kind of understood where all the different investments were. Sometimes in a relationship, in a marriage, one spouse will tend to handle that.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't you, well, that can be very overwhelming.
Mm.
So it starts with getting organized, putting together that balance sheet, that list of assets, liabilities, understanding your income, and then understand your expenses. So a lot of times we'll say is let's monitor expenses for 1 or 2 months,
Yeah.
so that you can understand what all those different expenses are, what money's going where, and then we can, think about maybe a budget if we have to.
Yeah, and so like how would they look at kind of some, because there's a lot of different things happening now too, right? Like there's a lot of survivor benefits, pensions, social security, life insurance plan policies, like all of this stuff. So how do I look at that in the equation of all of this?
Yeah, so that's going to fall into that that list of assets,
Yeah.
liabilities, right? So if there's life insurance, that will pay out to you a death benefit in cash. So that becomes part of your balance sheet now. And things like pensions, Social Security, there's often death benefits on that. So it's working with those providers to understand what that benefit amount will be.
Mm.
And, maybe if you have to change bank instructions, things like that. So that's all part of that, getting organized. And I know, when we work with clients, we help them through a lot of that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to feel like you have to do it all alone.
Right. Yeah.
There's partners that can help you, whether it be, a financial planner, or a family member, or, a trusted friend, whoever it is. Um, Lean on people
Yeah.
to help you, and, take those steps, because it can be overwhelming if you think you're facing it alone.
Yeah. And I think, we've talked about this before, but really even just having those small steps and setting a small goal for yourself to achieve, right?
Hmm.
That helps as well.
Exactly. Yeah. What we typically do is we'll break it down in small pieces. Here's the most important. Here's what we should do first.
Yeah.
And here's what we'll tackle next and next,
Mm.
next, and just kind of break it down in manageable pieces, and really walk you through that process. And we can do it all on a timeline that works for you. So some
Mm,
things are a little bit more, timely.
right.
But then other things we can tackle along the way. It doesn't
Mm,
have to be all at once so that it's so
yeah.
overwhelming. Um,
Yeah, and it can feel like that, right? Like
yeah,
it feels like, oh, I got to make sure all my ducks are in a row right now, and
right.
yeah, hopefully some of that is can be held off for a little bit, so
For a
you
little
can,
for
yeah,
for a little bit.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. And if you're working with a planner, they can really help you through that process
yeah.
and just here's what we'll do first and then um, next and so on and so on.
Yeah, so like, I know organization, like understanding your budget, stuff like that, but I think one of the things that could happen too is your income source can shift, right? Like maybe you had two incomes, and now it's down to one. So like,
Mm-hmm.
how can you balance that sensibly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes back to the B word, budgeting,
Yeah.
understanding your expenses, understanding your budget, and then understanding what those income sources are. And, it could be Social Security, pensions. Maybe you're still working and you have a working income. And sometimes there's other places to access income too, right? So if there was a life
Hmm.
insurance policy, you might be able to draw an income off of that for a period of time, or different investment assets, or maybe you're retired and you have retirement accounts that you're taking distributions from. So all these different pieces, we can put it together, understand it, and then really, if we understand that budget,
Yeah.
um, and then you, if you know where your money's going, you can. It makes it a lot easier to okay, what are the essentials? What are the things that bring me joy, right? And then what are the kind of extras that
Mm.
maybe we don't need, places to cut back if you need to.
Yeah.
So that's all part of the process.
So, okay, so what are some like kind of things I need to think about long term from like a planning perspective, or like readjusting my goals, stuff like that,
Yeah,
that I should be aware of?
yeah. I think anytime you have a life changing event, it's a good time to sit down and just reassess, right, and reevaluate your goals. So what we'll do right from the beginning a lot is just make sure we understand what those goals are, and it might not know right at first. So it's something we can talk about, but understand, even what you're worried about, what concerns you have, so we can address those. But then, um, thinking about, okay, where do you want to live long term, right? Where do you see yourself? Is it in this home? Is it somewhere else? How about, if you're not retired yet, how does this change your retirement trajectory? We might have to sit down and look at that. It might change your readiness or your timeline. And then even things like looking at investment strategy, right? So, especially if you weren't the one that was involved with a lot of the investment planning, it's a good time to sit down, one, educate, two, talk about risk tolerance, because maybe you've never had that conversation. And then three, revisit those goals and make sure that your investments are still set up to support them,
Mm,
right? It might warrant a change in your investment strategy. So that's something
sure.
else you'd want to look at. And then last piece I would say is it's a good time too to revisit estate documents,
Hmm.
because that could cause a change, in your estate documents. Maybe now who your assets flow to at your passing now. You want to look at beneficiaries on accounts, make sure any changes that need to be done there. Um, so it's a good time to kind of sit down, revisit the goals, talk about all your different wishes, and make sure we implement any changes
Hmm.
that need to be done to support it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with Greg we were talking about is that can change too, right? Like
Absolutely,
so your goals today, just get them down today. But then
absolutely.
in a few years from now, those may shift and you can always come back and adjust those.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's important to get them down,
Yeah.
and because that way you can track progress. Doesn't mean they can't change,
Right.
and that's with anything.
Yeah.
Whether it be estate documents, financial plans. Um, we're going to have conversations over and over about those, and as things change, then we update and
Yeah.
we evolve.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to know that you're not just like you're not putting something in concrete right
No,
now,
you
right?
don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Nope, we said we're gonna do this,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's all great. So for those of you at home, first step, breathe.
breathe.
Then we're going to collect and organize all our stuff, create a budget, and then start thinking about long-term goals and how they've shifted.
Yep,
Great.
exactly.
All right. Well, thanks, Melissa. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Jay.
it. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Please see the full disclosure in our show notes for more information.